You know what that made me think of when you were just doing that? When the Grinch is like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
That's a great point.
That's why they're
on Netflix. Welcome to Underrated Favorites. This is a podcast show where we talk about films that are at least 10 years or older and think might have been slept on or just didn't get a lot of burn. We re-examine them, we follow them up. I am Rooster.
I am Nique.
And we're very happy to have you on this show. So, if you are unfamiliar with the movie that we are discussing, we go through a brief spoiler-free section, and then
breakdown, if you may.
Then we eventually dive right in and spill all in the beans. So today we are looking at a special movie. Dominique, let the people know what we're talking about today.
We watched and are talking about the movie Copycat. Yes. So, Chris, would you like to be able to break down and tell the people about Copycat?
Copycat is a 1995 thriller murder movie starring the iconic Sigourney Weaver, Holly Hunter, Dermot Mulroney, not to be confused with Dylan McDermott, and Harry Connick Jr., directed by John Amiel. Brief plot summary without
spoilers.
Yes. In Copycat, homicide detectives MJ and Ruben are at a loss as San Francisco is hit with a string of violent murders. Sigourney Weaver plays Dr. Helen Hudson, a criminologist who specializes in serial killers. Now, Dr. Hudson is a homebound agoraphobic with a fantastic condominium.
Beautiful home.
Elite.
Beautiful. If I had to be trapped somewhere,
this is where
top
we want.
10.
And she is a homebound agoraphobic because she survived a brutal attack at one point. But as this murder spree happens, Dr. Hudson reaches out to try and help the investigation, only to become targeted herself. The budget of this film was $27 million, and it made $79 million at the box office. It has a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb.
And if you're like, oh my gosh, that all sounds kind of good, like, how is that an underrated favorite? Like, ask yourself, have you heard of Copycat? And there you go. You have the answer. So it is currently available to watch on Netflix. So if you want to go ahead and just pause, we have our concession chat that we're going to get into. But if you know, like, oh my gosh, that sounds right up my alley, I want to go watch that right now, it's available to watch on Netflix.
Mm-hmm. So some concession chat, some popcorn and Raisinets.
We're grabbing some.
I guess I'll start with how old I was when I saw the movie, because you just saw it. You had never heard of this
I saw it today.
movie.
I was 32 because I just saw it today for the first time. Never heard of it before.
I was 12 when I first saw it.
Questionable age.
No, you're absolutely right.
to see this.
So 1995 was this spectacular time in my life, and this movie kind of resonates with me personally because that was the year
because he also studied serial killers.
I did. No, it was because in 1995 that was when I was like 12, almost 13, and then back then that was way before like they really cared about like young people going into like R-rated movies and stuff.
Oh, way to age yourself, dinosaur.
Well, no, but here's the other thing, though, too, is it's like, I think Jurassic Park, which came out, I want to say 2 years before.
Shout out Dr. Alan Grant.
Yes. Was the film that kind of got me into, like, I really want to experience these movies in theaters and kind of go. And so I started making more of an effort. And then about the age of 12 was when, like, there was a movie theater not too far from our house, so I could just, like, walk to it. Aww. And yeah. And so, like, Copycat was, like, I just remember, like, who Sigourney Weaver was. I was like, she was like, again, like you're learning these things, like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger and so forth, like these big time action stars. But I was like, oh my God, that's Sigourney Weaver, the chick from Aliens and Ghostbusters. And now she's in this. I was like, oh man, wow. Like, and what is this killer like on the loose? And like, oh, like,
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm 12.
Yeah, exactly. So pretty much. So I went in there and I thought this psychosexual, crazy murder drama, it took my breath away. As a 32-year-old who had never heard about it before, when I told you, like, hey, what do you think of this movie? And just kind of gave you the breakdown, and then versus what you eventually saw. How did you feel?
So I guess just to give a little context of like what we were going for, it is the 4th of July that we are filming this, and America, specifically United States of America, does not deserve a birthday party this year.
Yeah, South America and Central, y'all are still cool.
Yeah, shout out to y'all. Hope y'all are doing well. But the U.S. doesn't deserve. The U.S. is a joke today. So it was kind of like, let's really get something and talk about how much, about deep disappointment and what's wrong, like, with us. I know we did a whole series about the state of the world, and we tried to stop this from happening, but here we are. And so it was really the little clip that Netflix puts up that got me, because it starts out with Sigourney Weaver. Ooh, I just said her name really weird.
Well, we could talk about how Sigourney Weaver is a very unique name. How many Sigourneys have you ever met? Exactly.
Ooh. No, I've met one Irish.
Oh, okay. Got it. Shout out to the Irish.
Yeah. No, I was going to say it starts out with her really just calling out incel culture, and like she's like startup is like she's giving a lecture and she's like, okay, all the guys stand up. All right, now if you are younger than 20, sit down. If you are older than 35, sit down. If you are black or Asian sit down. And it's like, look around.
Looks like regular dudes.
She's like, ladies, some of them are cute, right? Yeah, well, guess what? 9 in 10 serial killers are one of these guys. They look just like these guys. Yeah. Like, and that is the trailer. Yeah. And then it goes into, so you know how the old like 90s trailers are.
With
so it's like, sometimes
bring back the
you
voiceover
never know
guy.
what's going to happen when and then these different clips are flashing. And I'm just like, oh, I'm in. Yeah. I'm in. You know what?
In a world where
yes, so like I was just like, oh, okay, like I'm in. It's calling out incel behavior because I really feel like that's the stem of like or I guess it's another like fruit off the tree of white supremacy. The gift that never stops giving. So I was just like, oh, that's relevant. Let's get into it. And so like, because it kind of came down to between this and The Founder. Yeah. And you said The Founder was going to depress me. So we watched this instead.
We saw the serial killer violent, murder.
Because, shout out to McDonald's, if that's more depressing than serial killers.
Exactly.
So that's kind of, but watching it, I think that's what got me hooked, made me want to watch it. As far as how I feel now, we'll get into more of that later, but like I will say, I think it was a good pick. It pissed me off a lot, reasons. But overall,
Yeah. So in sort of cinema history, Copycat is in the vein of serial killer detective dramas like Seven, Mindhunter, The Bone Collector, Insomnia, The Little Things, Zodiac, and kind of this, I feel like, was this precursor to where we live now, where you do have so many more like Let's Talk, like My Favorite Murder podcast.
Yeah, all the little true crimes, which are great, but this is kind of really is tapping into that kind of before, because I think it's also important to say that like Sigourney Weaver, they kind of treat her as if she's one of those like internet sleuth, but that was one of the things that she's a licensed professional, like, and so that was one of my little like things. We'll get into more of that later, but definitely like a peak, or not peak, but like a little starting stem to that culture. I see that there.
Yeah, and in this time in the U.S., it was like right before sort of serial killer like love and affection happened. And serial killer paranoia was still a thing. Like people were still really paranoid that like, oh my God, a serial killer is going to get me.
Really start? Well, no, because people were like wanting to fuck Ted Bundy before this. Like,
yes, in the 70s. But what I'm talking about specifically is this was the point where like Ted Bundy became like glamorized, because like serial killers as like a pathological like thing like wasn't understood. So like, because the a note that I put in here too was prior to, I would say, this time period in these movies, and specifically Mindhunter, I think was the first movie that did that, did what we're talking about. It's like serial killers existed in films, but they were horror films. Like it was Psycho, it was, you know, Halloween is really the story of Michael Myers, the serial killer, and so it was this kind of horrific thing. And I think America took serial killers previously almost like shark attacks or something, where it was like, you know, it's just these violent maniacs that just happen to be out there. Hope I never run across one. Now was sort of this like actual shift into like the detective work, the pathology, the psychology, the like, let's deconstruct crime scenes. Let's talk about like who the victims were.
They're not boogeymen, they're just men, and let's break down who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you still had that like rise of like kind of, I would say Bundy was the main one, like who kind of began the like,
I think that's what they
love affair of serial killers. But then I think it still grew in this interesting way where like even like Jeffrey Dahmer, like he wasn't particularly well loved, but like again it was like, oh my god, like people wanted to learn about him. What's his deal? What's his thing? What was his parents
that's what
like?
I get what you love, like she mean love affair, like it's the like national fascination.
That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah,
a better fascination.
No, because I thought you just meant like people wanting to fuck serial killers, and I was like, no, that's been around.
Yeah,
but no, I get what you mean, like as a culture, like in America in general. But I think, you know what's also to blame with that? Cop-aganda.
No, I completely agree, because with serial killers in film, it gives you a clear, honest hero.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they're trying to go against the serial killer, so obviously they're the good guy,
right?
Like, yeah,
yeah. Why is it on this pod? Because literally a month before this film, the movie Seven came out, and
that's
washed
probably why
this
I never heard
movie
it
off the map. So this, which again, I love Seven. I'm not gonna lie. I think I want to hang with Copycat more than I do with Seven. Seven is just so dark and grim, and like I'm like, oh my god.
And then this one ends on a. Oh, I'm not gonna. No spoilers. Never mind.
Yeah, but anywho, I think that's about it. There's not really much else to say. I think this film is also way ahead of its time in terms of what the internet would be.
Yes.
How people communicate with each other through online like messaging. This movie was,
and it also did it in a real practical way, not like a fantastical way that a lot of the early movies had, like the internet and computers. It was something fantastical, and it's like, no, like these are really practical ways, but it's how you infiltrate people's life and how you let people have access to you in these strange ways that like now we do it so much we don't even think about like what we're really bridging ourselves to.
Yeah, like this movie, like in a very practical way, gives us things like AOL Instant Messenger type shit, email, video, like GIFs, editing,
yes,
video editing, and then like Zoom conference meetings, like. But again, in that practical, realistic sense, that it's like did exist at that time, just nobody did it in a major way, like around the country. The way that we do now and that we take for granted. So I think it was very ahead of its time on that front too. So that does it before all
that wraps up the concessions chat. It's time to rewind and pause. If you would like to go watch the movie before you hear us spoil everything, it is currently streaming on Netflix. So go check it out and come right back. Or you can just ride out with us. But it's time to
Yeah. So let's start with what got you upset, because I think a lot of these were plot points, and let's kind of go there. So we start.
The police fucking suck. I will start there, because I think also watching this right after watching the Idaho murders documentary.
Oh yeah.
I think that was not a good call, because we can sum up the Idaho murderers documentary into incompetent police work. That's really like, we have a guy who we think it is and we're not going to look into anything fucking else. Like, and that's really, you see the like from looking at a documentary of real recent crimes and then going into this movie, I feel like it really did affect me in a way that I didn't anticipate, because they are so clumsy in how they handle people at the beginning of this movie. Particularly Sigourney Weaver's character, Dr. Helen Hunt. First, she's failed by the police, like for the event that, because they start with the event that traumatizes her. With that event, the police fail her by literally abandoning her when they're supposed to be guarding her, and then half-assing room checks that allow her to get fucking caught up. Mm-hmm. And then outside of that, you see, next time you see police interacting with her, they're blaming her, talking about she's the lady who gets cops killed. And it's like, that's wild. Like, she escaped with her life, and then to be like, she gets cops kills when those cops weren't doing their fucking job. Wild. And then they're like throwing murder pictures at this heavily traumatized person, and then is like, oh my gosh, why she acting like that? Like, that's the whole beginning of the movie. And so, yeah, like,
not the whole, but yeah, it's a big point.
It's like
a big plot point that she's agoraphobic, and so they throw like reliving your trauma at her.
Like, and it's like, why won't you help us? Do we need to take you down to the police? Like, no, basically. Yeah, basically. They're literally like, she's a fucking pill popping juicer asshole. Like, and it's like, yeah. Oh my God, you bust up into this lady's home, throw traumatizing pictures at her.
And then vulnerable target already with all types of mental health and agoraphobia on top of it. Like, and hasn't left her house in over a year.
13
She's a
months,
shut-in, yes.
Like, and counting. She doesn't plan on leaving anytime soon.
And just for some context, it's because the movie opens with that, what you saw as the trailer, where she's giving her lecture on like standard serial killer modus operandi, to where immediately afterwards, even with police protection, she gets violently attacked and
almost dies.
I think it's kind of alluded to. She might even get like SA'd a little bit.
There's a chance that like, could have happened because of the future conversations that happened with the guy.
The nature of the guy who is played by Harry Connick Jr. plays Daryl Lee Cullum, who's his own kind of redneck serial killer piece of shit, and he plays it well. So we see what has transpired to then lead her down this path, to where, to your point, I do agree. I think this movie does something fascinating that I love, in that what cop-aganda exists in this film. I think it's heavier in Seven than this film.
Oh, definitely. In all of the movies really that are of this vein to come as well.
Right. This movie kind of does something which it starts to like cross into what we're now more familiar with, before we were ever familiar with it, which is like, let's talk about psychology, let's talk about pathology, let's talk about criminal profiling, and you know,
in a practical sense.
Yeah, and Sigourney Weaver's character is basically like treated like a kook. And she's
a crank is what they say.
Yeah, they're like, this lady, you know, what's she trying to do? They see her as an opportunist, as like someone.
She might be trying to sell a new book, and it's like, y'all, and that was after someone literally broke into her apartment.
Right.
Like, and they saw them running away. Like, they came, someone abandoned her again, a fucking cop station to protect her, abandoned her again over some dumb shit, a fucking car alarm in a fucking parking lot. Took a cop that was supposed to be guarding a door away from it. Like, incompetent cops.
Yes.
Like,
well, and I think the other thing this film does well, that other films like Zodiac also kind of does well, is maybe not to the same extent of Zodiac, because this film is really juggling two things, which is like the pathology and criminology background versus the tedious and monotonous police work. Yeah. And sort of the refined, like, this is how we do things to conduct an investigation. And so, yeah, like the police department is basically a good old boys club. You have the two detectives that we meet, Ruben and MJ.
MJ is short for Mary Jane.
Yes.
And she is basically like the only female cop.
Well, no, and then like, at first she's kind of a
only woman
pick-me.
there. Like, I think, no, but I'm trying to remember. Was she the only
she
woman
was the
in the
only
unit?
woman, yeah.
So she's the only woman in the unit. And
so you see how she kind of flirts with guys sometimes, or she's kind of a hard ass on other times. Like, she's playing the game.
She's playing the
to
game. It made me
advance.
think of the, if you know or if you don't know, you can go look it up, the Disney short about the yarn ball. Like... and who makes themselves hard, but then they're a jackass to the other yarn ball that joins the fucking office, and they have to remind themselves, like, shit, that was me.
Yeah.
But, like, so that kind of happens through this too, but it takes so fucking long to happen. Like, but she's like, yeah, they're calling her crazy, I'm gonna call her crazy too. Like,
because I think Holly Hunter's character who plays MJ, she's like playing, I think she views her job as like to play the boys game, and that makes all
but I think it's also to make up for it because she was previously like engaged to one of them.
Well, maybe neither here nor there on that part, but I don't disagree with you. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like her job is to play the game so that she can function in the field. So because of that, the murders initially are just a routine. It's just like, because at the very first crime scene, she's like, oh, hey, Mike, hey, Bill, hey, like, she knows everyone. She knows the routine. She knows this person. Like, here we go. Let's go. Give me the details. She catches the guy who kind of like fibbed on some information. Like, you know, did
you touch anything in the crime scene?
Right. Like, but it's like, so it's not. It's,
casually, though.
So
not that it, corrupts anything and can mess up anything for anyone.
And the fact that there's a woman murdered in a bathtub, it's sort of like, she's indifferent to.
It is everyday business.
Just another day. Yeah. And then even later on when you had because the whole gimmick of Copycat is the serial killer who they're chasing, his methodology is copycatting
famous serial killers
and killing,
literally, like,
so he recreates crime scenes.
He does it in the exact way that they committed their crimes, and then stages them to be found in the exact way that the crime scene photos are from the previous murders, thus
making him harder to catch. So
yes,
but like at one point when he switches to the Son of Sam and he shoots a woman in the head in a parked car, they're like, oh, we just think it might be a drive-by or a gang thing or something like that, and that's how quick. I think that's what I love about Copycat is murder is so routine that for police they
can be desensitized.
They can be desensitized and also quick to just arrive at a solution that then they're trying to prove. Because even when like the hippie girl is found in the dump site, they're like, and they see track marks, they're like,
they're like, oh, these hippies, they want free love and they want to be beautiful, and this just happens sometimes. Like,
right? How
could you say that about? Like, this is a young woman's body that you just found. Yeah. And it's like, oh, she wanted to be beautiful.
Congrats.
Too bad. Yeah. You're like,
and then that's where Sigourney Weaver plays such this like emotional role, because at the same time, I also being that she was victimized is huge, but also it's like she is someone who has reported on these victims, reported on these killers, and is so close to the source material. It's like she does have this emotional anchor, and like she kind of like, unlike other serial killer movies where you see the victims like getting like in the moment of death, I think Copycat does a good job of it. You see them in the moment of stalking, like you see how they get stalked, you see how he like tricks them or grabs them or you know, even with the case of the girl who's like tied up on a table, like you see him like, you know, keeping her prisoner, but you don't see like in a horror movie or in other films like that those moments of fear from the victim.
It doesn't focus on that.
But you see that from Sigourney.
Yes.
And so she kind of is acting out like the paranoia, the anxiety, like she of all these sort of like victims and survivors even, like at the same time. Like she fucking kills it, bro. I love this movie. Overarching. Oh, well, first I wanted to talk about originality. So Seven got this movie the fuck out of here. But also there's another movie that followed it that I also think kind of got it the fuck out of here that also has to really do with exactly what we're talking about. And that's the movie Scream. Because I feel like Copycat fits right in between Seven and Scream.
It really does.
Because
that's a great bridge. Great.
Right. Because Scream is the same, is now the meta commentary about serial killers
It's
and how
subverting it.
yeah, and it's like, and it makes light of it. It makes a joke of it. Even the two killers in the film. But the other thing that it does that Copycat doesn't do is, rather than getting like these sort of adult actors to kind of like go through the murder mystery and detectives, they go young. They get young and sexy actors and actresses to be the victims, to be the killers, to be, you know, and like the only older people who are idiots are the stuffy cops. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I feel like a lot of shit rips Copycat off all the time. Like low key. Yeah. Like
that's crazy. Like I had to take more time to think about that since I just saw it hours ago.
Yeah, no problem.
But no, that is I do think just off the jump, I think that's a great call.
But then I think because again, both Seven and Scream were just such.
But I think
movies,
it's also because
Copycat
it's in that in
never got
between is the reason why it's so easy for it to get lost, because it's not the Zodiac that when people want Zodiac, it's not Scream, it's not campy, like it's taking itself serious and a lot, and people usually cut that in one or two ways. Right, you know, they cut it by jumping in, going super serious, showing more like, or they back up and it's campy, it's horror, like. So I think it's in a lane of its own, and I think when you're in your own lane, it's easy to get lost.
You're not wrong.
So.
Some overarching themes. We talked about serial killer worship already. I don't know. This might not be the first time I ever saw this, or it may be the first time I ever saw it on film. I don't know if historically, I don't know if this is the first time if this was on screen. But the anxiety-riddled hero with mental health issues that'll matter more later. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen, like, because Sigourney Weaver up to that point was always seen as like this very strong and woman, sexy woman.
Like she's the strong
she's
woman
Ripley.
Protagonist. Like she's your final girl. Like, yeah. And so I guess, seeing her like this.
Well, because like now you have like even television shows like House, where he's addicted to painkillers and he's the smart guy, but he's got the limp, or you got like, the Mentalist or Monk.
An older one that I thought of immediately was kind of Independence Day, which is ironic.
With Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, no, I think
like his character is kind of that.
Right.
But I think that's a little later. I think that's later in the 90s.
I think, or it might have been the year or two before. Like there were so many good movies in the 90s.
So it's like, I think that's another, like he's a paranoid protagonist,
right.
But it actually helps towards the end. So I think that's a good one. I can't think of another one that's an older example of that though.
I don't, you know what, the one example I would say would be Rear Window. Which, like, if you've ever
heard of it,
it's an Albert Hitchcock film, but the whole point of the movie is it's a guy with an injured leg, and he's just looking out his window at his neighborhood because he can basically peer into people's houses. So he has like a little, but that becomes his entertainment because there's nothing to do.
So Disturbia before Disturbia.
Disturbia, low key, actually not even low key, high key, just ripped off Rear Window. It's like it's a Rear Window rip off. But then he sees a murder, and then he starts getting paranoid, and everyone's just like, "You're just tired, buddy."
So this is It's exactly Disturbia.
It's exactly Disturbia.
Okay, well. Don't need to watch that.
So like that would be the one sort of caveat for that. But that also kind of led to this other idea, which is a proto-feminist film with intelligent leads who are still strong, but like
in their own different ways. Because even like I can hate fucking Holly Hunt's character MJ, but like she was that bitch, and she got shit done. So
and she got the blicky. She will shoot.
Yeah, and better than the men. Like so. That's, I think, shout out to her for that. She was also a bitch, so fuck her, but she was that bitch too. So, and
then also a soft yet considerate male in Dermot Mulroney.
Yes,
like this movie. This movie really is ahead of its time. Of like, hey,
and
guy.
then even with Andy, for being
gay
like fucking Dr. Helen Hunt's bestie, who was helping her.
Hudson.
Sorry,
Helen Hunt's the chick from Twisters.
Yeah, I completely switched up the note because Holly Hunt. That's what I did. I switched up the names. But Sigourney Weaver's character, like she has an assistant that like partially lives with her to help her through everything, named Andy, and he is there like as the cop, like when she has her panic attack because the cops are fucking throwing traumatizing pictures at her and shit. Like he's the one who like helps her through her panic attack and like holds her till she passes out, and like even explains to them where they fucked up, like, but also is like, you know what, you can leave the pictures, I will help her look at them, like, and we'll let you know. He was such a, and like, again, R.I.P. I think it's also something that they develop these sensitive male characters and then fucking kill them
Both
off.
of them die.
Like,
but and see, and I think that also might be why.
So men can't be sensitive.
Well, no,
live?
no. I think I think again, this film is ahead of its time, and like I know I'm giving it high praise because sometimes I just watch so many movies that it's like I start looking at them in this different sort of spectrum where like Seven is almost like the complete opposite of this, where it's hard boiled, it's dark, it's violenter, it's more sexual, and like the two main characters
they show more of the actual violence.
Yeah,
there's more focus on that.
And sort of like, but also like the pathology kind of doesn't, it does this, it's this very masculine quote unquote like movie where like you have Morgan Freeman playing like the stoic, wise old man who's seen too much and he's over it. And then you have jaded, and then you have Brad Pitt as like the young upstart who just wants to make a name for himself. But then the way that movie ends is with like Brad Pitt's wife
bearing the brunt.
Well, yeah, getting her head chopped off for this for
the lesson.
And it's all about like male ego trying to conquer like this villain who's a serial killer, but he's really just like, in my opinion, like one of the fakest serial killers ever to exist, as far as like his ego taking over and like this is how he kills, his methodology. Like it's interesting for a movie, but like that's all that film's about to me, is it's like these male men and their ego versus this guy and his ego. Whereas Copycat to me is about the incel sort of like out of sorts man who then fantasizes about violence and power. So what
we're saying is really that Seven was clearly written by an English major, and Copycat was written by a criminology major.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
But like I think again at the heart of what Copycat does well is it's like, again, you have these different,
or by a psych major,
different women who aren't in competition and collaboration, but then you also, like you said, you have these soft men who die.
And soft's not a bad word
in the best way.
Them, like
you know, Dermot Mulroney's a ladies' man. Like that, they kind of cover that quick when like they're at the shooting range and he's like, oh, I got, you know, he gets a phone call and Holly Hunter's like, you're gonna get that? Which girl is that this time? Like, so he's out here getting chicks. But again, he's like considerate, compassionate. He's like, oh, hey, let me step in for you. I'll stay. Like,
he's the one that really, it starts to be considerate for Sigourney Weaver's character and like honoring her limitations instead of just making fun of her for them.
Exactly. And then like you mentioned about Andy, like while yes, he's a queer character, you also see like how a healthy platonic love even can exist and with those two. And so it becomes this really fascinating case study for me of a film where I'm like,
and it's actually his murder that makes Sigourney's character really kind of buck up and really like, you know what, you want to come after me and mine, I'm gonna come after you too.
That's right.
Like, so
yeah. We talked a little bit about the characters. Was there any other characters you want to kind of like highlight or anything specific about them? Like, so we talked about Sigourney, we talked about MJ and Ruben, Andy. What about the main serial killer guy? Did he stand out to you?
Peter Foley, like, I
feel like that was bad casting.
Well, like, I don't think it was bad casting. I think the point is that he's just some white guy. Like, and I think that's that ties in the trailer. Like, he was just some guy and he has his issues. Like, he fits the profile and he's a fucking loser. Like, and like, I guess it's kind of like, be knowledgeable of that, because at any moment, any of these fucking losers who think they deserve more than they earn can fucking snap. Like,
yeah.
And I think that's, again, going back to having previously watched the Idaho murders, like they tap on that, and that's still the case to this day. Like, at any moment, a fucking loser can snap and become a murderer.
That's
like,
true too.
So watch out for losers, ladies.
Well, and then
that's
a good
and
point.
Guys, like, everyone, watch out for fucking losers. Like,
because sometimes I struggle with the film because I'm like, who's this film about? And I think I'm a firm, like, it's Sigourney's movie, but MJ and Ruben get a lot of burn.
They do. They get
a ton of burn. Almost more burn. Yeah. Like, and so it becomes this really interesting, like almost like two protagonist like film. But I think you're right about the serial killer. It's like he's just the problem that they have to solve.
Yeah.
But I think
he's not even a full character.
Yeah. But I think that's also what maybe hurt the film a little bit. Whereas like fucking Kevin Spacey, piece of shit as you are, you know,
that he is a fleshed out character.
He just comes on stage and he just eats.
But I think that goes more to the point of this movie. Like, this guy could be any fucking guy. Like,
you romanticize these killers and yet he's still just bum-ass
like,
Pete.
and I think that goes back to the beginning of it. Like, stand up. Like, it really could be any one of these fucking guys.
Fair point.
Because that's like, you are a profile. You're not original. No matter if you want to be famous or not, there's nothing singular about you. Like, you're, yeah.
No, okay, I agree. Impact and context. How for a movie from 1995, Dominique, and this being your first time, how do you feel like it aged in your eyes?
I think it aged very well. The only thing is the internet.
Yeah.
That's really what ages it. But I think like lecture circuits are still this fucking same. Like, cops. We just watched the documentary and they haven't fucking changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think it aged exceptionally well.
Well, yeah. Okay, I agree. I also think just sort of like we just recently saw Department Q. And I feel like
I got like little.
Yeah,
I think it's just like having watched like a procedural recently.
Yeah, I think
it's like
this movie for me, it aged well, but it fits into two kind of camps. Like on one camp, I see it as this influential film that you can say like the Mindhunter, this TV, the Netflix series, or like a lot of other sort of like films like that. Zodiac even have like lifted from or pulled from or take inspiration from. In that sort of
it may not be daddy
sense.
Or mommy, but it's God mom status. To
but
these
then
others.
on another hand, I almost see it as just like these middle of the road 90s movies that used to come out that I love. Like they're like, they don't make those anymore.
And that's why we have this podcast to let you know about them.
Exactly. So before we wrap up, and let's hit our final call. What about Copycat do you put on a pedestal, Dominique? If anything.
I'm like, it's a tie. Or I guess I can put them both up there. I'll put Helen Hudson and Andy. Like, they are there for each other and they are there for the shits. Like,
wait, you mean Sigourney Weaver?
Yeah, I said Helen Hudson.
It did. No, Helen. Yeah, Dr. Helen Hudson. Yeah.
Yes. You over here trying to correct me. Look at you.
No,
men.
my bad. Yeah, I fucked up.
Ew.
Clip that.
But,
edit it.
No, so I'll put them up there. Like, she is phenomenal. It's the way, and even like whoever wrote her lecture is a great lecturer. Like, she's that would be like a great circuit to see. It almost like made me feel kind of like the way I felt watching the lecture circuit from the Conjuring films.
Yeah, like, I can see that. Ooh, that's a good call.
Like, it's completely different in context and subject, but it's the same way that it draws you in. And so it's like whoever wrote that, great writing, Mm-hmm. And then she is just like, even as she does so much, because she is such a content expert for her. Like, she knows her shit so much that she gives the police so much with so fucking little. They give her crumbs and she puts that shit together so fucking fast. Like, yeah.
It's an awesome character.
She's just an amazing character.
So on my pedestal, I would put Sigourney Weaver top shelf. She is a dynamite, underrated actress, period. I think with an iconic role as Ripley and even in Ghostbusters.
And in Paul.
And in Paul.
And in The Cabin in the Woods. Like, she's just...
Well, she just comes in
throw her in anything. Like, you know what? It is up there with Meryl Streep. She can do anything.
I agree.
I'm saying it. I said it.
I agree.
I said it.
So what movie would you pair with Copycat?
Do you have one off the top of your head?
I do.
Go ahead.
So I have two, actually. I would pair... Actually, I got three. I would pair Copycat with Zodiac if you're into murder mystery, serial killer fare.
And one will keep you awake and one will put you to sleep.
Right. Says you. I would also potentially pair it with Scream as like, oh, okay, like this is like a 90s
like, I do
highlight.
see that as you, after you made that comparison, I do see that.
Like a 90s highlight kind of time. The other film I would pair it with, it's sort of like another, this is like, I think now we call them Lifetime movies, like these movies that just aren't like of a certain caliber. But in the 90s, there were these type of films like Copycat, Bone Collector, Taking Lives, and so many others. Like Jeepers Creepers kind of almost is in that conversation where you just had these movies that rock, but you're like, yeah, it's not like a great blockbuster, but the people handle business. I would say Copycat and a film called The Bone Collector with Denzel Washington and Angelina Jolie that we'll probably do on this podcast at some time. But again, it's kind of in this like post-7, everyone's trying to capture that vein. So those are my three. Okay. What about you?
So I'll put it with one that kind of goes a little, not a little, it goes a lot more distressing than we did it on this podcast already. But I feel like it would be like, watch that one first and then watch this one to kind of like take yourself out of it. Is 8mm. I think
that's a good call. Yeah.
Like, but you got to watch 8mm first.
Yeah.
And then this would be like kind of lighten you a little bit. So
I'm here for that.
Yeah.
So let's rank the film. For those of you, if this is your first time listening, we have a ranking system. At the tippy top, we hoist the gold on the films that we give the coveted underrated favorite title. For those films that deserve their flowers, meaning they are elite and more people need to see it. After that, we have the good but slept on. The next one below that is for the historically mid. For those solid movies that just people didn't see because, just history bears out and they're like, oh, they're fine. Below that, we have the good bad movie for the movies that are bad.
They are bad, but we love them.
Yeah, they kind of still.
But Mommy, I love him.
Yeah, exactly. And then at the very bottom, we have the
certified flop.
Non-coveted flop. So, Dominique, where would you rank Copycat?
So I've got to say good but slept on. Or I'll do what you do sometimes and be like, great but slept on. Like, it was a great movie. Loved it. But just inherently by definition, it didn't get seen by many. And I think it's just because, like you said, like 7 came out a month before this, and so it got washed. It happens, but that's why you got us to tell you about the movies that got washed before.
Yeah.
So where are you gonna put it?
I am gonna say this is an underrated favorite for me. It is great but slept on, like in terms of true deformed definition of our rankings.
But in your heart.
But in my heart, it's better than that. It's just enough to say that you should all see this film.
Yes, go see it. It's currently streaming on Netflix.
Yeah, and again, it's like one last point I want to make. It was funny at the start because we turned it on and you were like, "Oh shit, this movie's like 2 hours long."
Yeah, but it didn't feel like it.
No.
I can honestly say that because
it moves from
I
thing
will fall
to thing.
asleep.
But it's also not fast paced, but it moves. It's paced well.
Yes, it's paced very well.
Yeah. So anywho, well, let's go ahead and wrap things up. Where can they watch this film?
Like I just said, this movie is currently streaming on Netflix. So if you would like to see it, you can scurry on over there and do that.
And if you think that we're wrong, go and hop in our comments or DMs where